The sky burned low and red, like the last breath of a dying fire, as Samuel Creed rode the fence line with a shotgun across his saddle and the weight of too many years across his shoulders. His ranch stretched wide beneath the dusk, wind-cut and brittle, miles of sun-seared pasture giving way to a crooked line of cottonwoods where the land turned wilder. Cattle moved like ghosts in the distance. The storm hadn't broken yet, but the air tasted of thunder. From the porch, his daughter Letty watched him ride, her skirt catching the wind, her eyes following the rhythm of his horse. 17, with hair like burnt wheat and a face still unsure whether it belonged to a girl or a woman. She was barefoot again, dust between her toes, humming some old tune her mother used to sing. Though she couldn't remember the words anymore, only the melody, like a thread of smoke. Samuel swung down near the corral and looked her way, squinting against the wind. "Put your boots on," he said. "Snakes re-moving again." Letty didn't move. They always move when the air feels like this. You said so yourself. He wiped a hand down his face side. And they always bite the ones who don't listen. She stepped off the porch with a defiant grace, boots dangling from her fingers, and walked past him into the barn without another word. He watched her go, watched the sharpness in her shoulders, the flint behind her quiet, and wonder how much of her was her mother and how much was him. Both were dangerous. Inside, the barn smelled of dry hay and leather, warm and familiar. Letty reached for the bridle, pausing to stroke the nose of her mare. She felt safer around animals than people. Horses didn't lie. They didn't burn letters or drink too much or stare too long at a grave and say nothing at all. Samuel stepped in after her, the door creaking shut behind him. "You ride that far out again," he said. "You tell me. Don't matter if you're grown. That mesa's too close to Apache land." Letty looked at him then, eyes sharp. "They haven't been seen in weeks. That's when they come, when you think they ain't." She didn't answer. He hated how silence between them had grown louder over the years. Ever since her mother passed, words had become like sharp tools, used only when necessary and always with care. Out in the distance, a hawk screamed over the plains, a high, bitter note. The wind shifted. Even the horses felt it. Heads turned. Ears twitched. Samuel's body tensed before his mind caught up. He opened the barn door slowly, scanning the horizon. Nothing, but the silence was wrong. Not heavy like before storm. Hollow, like breath held too long. Then came the first scream, sharp, human, full of heat. Letty dropped the bridle. Samuel shoved her back toward the stalls. "Stay down." She obeyed out of instinct, crouching behind a bale of hay. He stepped out into the yard, shotgun raised. The sky was full of dust now, churning up from the east, riding fast. Horses. Shadows leapt from the earth. Apache. No warning. No parley. They came like wind and fire, faces streaked with paint, arrows slicing through the air. One struck the post beside Samuel's head. He fired once, the sound booming like God's own rage, and then again, until the chamber clicked empty. A rider broke through the smoke and dust, lasso in hand. Samuel ran to meet him, swinging the stock of his gun like a club, but he was too slow, too far. Another rider circled behind the barn. Samuel's eyes cut toward it too late. By the time he got to the stalls, Letty was gone. Only her boots lay behind, still tied together, forgotten in the straw. They rode hard into hills. The girl bound across a horse like meat on the trail. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She stared sideways at the sky, the color of blood and rust. Her lip cracked open from the backhand of the first man who touched her. Among them was a younger warrior, not at the front, not at the rear. He rode quiet, face unreadable, spear strapped to his back. His name was Nantan. The others didn't call him leader, but they followed his eyes before their own. He had killed more than his share. He had lost more, too. He glanced at the girl. She was breathing hard, but still. Her fingers were bloody from trying to fight free of the rope. He saw a glint in her, something familiar, the same fire that had once burned in his sister's face, before the white soldiers took her and returned only a piece of her dress, torn and blood-stained, 3 weeks later. That fire, still alive in this girl. Nanan looked away. Behind him, Taza grinned. Older, cruel, all sinew and teeth. Pretty thing, he said in Apache. She won't last a night. Nanan said nothing. But that night, as they made camp in a box canyon beneath a sky full of thin stars, he waited until the others had eaten. Waited until Taza slept with his rifle across his chest. Then he walked over to the girl, crouched beside her. She flinched, jerking back, her wrists bound to a post. I won't touch you, he said quietly in broken English. She stared, unsure. He pulled a canteen from his belt, uncorked it, and held it near her mouth. She hesitated, then drank, greedy at first, then slower, watching him with every swallow. Why? She asked, voice hoarse. Nantan stood. Because you shouldn't be here. Before she could speak again, he was gone, back to the shadows, to the firelight flickering across painted faces. Samuel Creed didn't sleep that night. The fire had gutted most of the barn. He sat near the ashes, cradling a rifle, staring at the horizon. His daughter was gone. The old rage stirred in him like a dog scenting blood. He'd fought them before, Apache, Comanche, even other whites who thought they could take what wasn't theirs. Now, they had taken the last thing that mattered. Morning broke slow, the sun crawling over the land like it feared what it might find. Smoke still rose in thin black ropes. Samuel mounted a half-lame gelding, wrapped what ammo he had in a saddlebag, and rode east, toward the canyon country, toward the place he swore never to go again. He didn't pray. He didn't cry. He just whispered, "You're not dead. Not yet." And the land, cracked and dry beneath his boots, whispered nothing back. The canyon walls narrowed like a throat around them, casting long shadows across the trail as the Apache war party moved deeper into the redstone. The air shifted cooler, damper, echoing with the clatter of hooves and the occasional call of a distant crow. Letty Creed was tied to a travois dragged behind one of the ponies, dust streaking her cheeks, wrists rubbed raw beneath the coarse leather bindings. Her lip had swollen to a dark bloom. She hadn't spoken since the first night. The warriors paid her no mind, except for Taza, who rode close enough for her to smell the grease in his hair. His grin was always wide, like he knew things he didn't want to hear said out loud. He didn't speak English, not much, but his stare said enough. She kept her eyes on the rocks. Nantan kept farther back, silent as always, but always watching. His horse moved with the ease of something born to the wild, and so did he, eyes always scanning, shoulders loose but alert. He hadn't spoken to her again since giving her water. She didn't know what to make of him. He had let her drink. He hadn't touched her. That was all she could say. One evening, 2 days into the journey, they made camp in a bowl of land rimmed by stone. The fire was small, smoke carefully smothered. They were deep in disputed country now, where white patrols sometimes crept through the night like wolves with rifles. The men kept quiet, speaking only in low tones in Apache. Taza motioned toward Letty with a jerk of his chin. "The girl slows us," he said to Nantan. "She will not slow me," Nantan replied. "You're soft because you pity her." Nantan glanced up from where he was stripping bark for the fire. "No, I am hard because I remember. That's worse." Taza scowled, but said nothing more. Letty sat near a stone, arms still bound, the backs of her legs scratched and bleeding from the ride. She stared into the fire, its light flickering in her eyes. Her skin was crusted with dirt, her lips cracked, but she sat tall, back straight, like she refused to break. Nantan approached her with a tin cup and crouched slowly, keeping his hands visible. She didn't move. "Drink," he said, holding the cup out. She looked at it, then at him. "You with them or not?" He didn't answer. "You talk like you think you're better." His jaw tensed. "I am Apache. I ride with them. I bleed with them. And me? What am I? Wrong place. Wrong blood." She laughed, bitter and hollow. "Ain't that always the reason?" He didn't speak again. He left the cup beside her and stood. As he turned away, she said, "You're not like the others." He paused, but didn't turn back. "Don't make that mistake." Far behind them, Samuel Creed followed tracks to the canyon floor, eyes narrow beneath his hat, rifle always within reach. The trail was difficult, half washed by rain, confused by goat paths and false spurs. But he'd tracked men before. He knew the way they moved, the signs they left behind when they thought no one could read the land. Luis rode beside him, older, leaner, with skin dark from sun and eyes always scanning the skyline. Part Mexican, part Apache, all survivor. He'd buried a family once, long ago, and hadn't built another since. "They're moving fast," Luis said, dismounting to examine a broken branch. "Not running, just sure of the land." Samuel didn't answer. His face was granite. Luis studied him. "You want her back, or you want revenge?" Samuel spat into the dust. "Same thing right now." "No," Luis said, mounting again. "They ain't. One gets you your girl. The other gets you a grave." Samuel didn't argue. He kicked his horse forward. That night, under a bruised sky, they made camp in silence. Luis cooked beans. Samuel stared into the dark. The wind whispered over the rocks, and somewhere far off, a coyote cried. Luis said, "You remember what I told you about their code?" Samuel nodded. "They'll keep her alive if she's worth something. And if she ain't..." Samuel gripped the stock of his rifle. "Then I make them regret breathing." Luis didn't smile. "They already regret that. That's why they fight." Back in the canyon camp, Nanton sat alone beside the fire, sharpening a blade on a stone. The others slept or muttered among themselves. He was not included in their talk. He preferred it that way. He'd long ago learned that a quiet man was harder to pin down, hard to name as traitor or hero. His thoughts kept circling the girl. She wasn't the first captive he'd seen, but she was the first who looked at him like she could see something past the feathers and war paint. That unsettled him. He remembered his sister's name, spoken like a prayer he wasn't allowed to say anymore. He remembered her laughter before the soldiers came. He remembered how the village had blamed themselves, blamed the wind, the omens, the wrong turn of the season. He looked at Letty, sleeping against a stone, head fallen sideways, lips still cracked and bloody, something twisted in his chest. He stood, walked toward her. She stirred as he approached, flinched as if bracing for pain. He knelt and said, "When the sun rises, you ride." Her eyes snapped open. "What?" "I will take you. Quietly, before they wake." "Why?" Her voice was thin, barely there. He didn't answer. She shook her head. "They'll kill you." He nodded once. "And you'll do anyway?" He looked at her then, really looked, like he was carving her memory into stone. "Not everything we do is for ourselves." Letty swallowed hard, tried to sit up straighter despite the bindings. "And what if I don't trust you?" "Then you stay, and I leave, and the others, they do what they will." She stared at him for a long moment. The fire popped between them. Finally, she whispered, "Cut me loose." He drew his knife. Behind them, in the shadows, Taza stirred. His eyes opened, dark as coal, his breath slow and steady. He said nothing. Not yet. The canyon slept, but the wind carried the promise of motion, of blood or mercy yet to be chosen. The night was thick with cold and silence as Nanton cut Letty's bindings. His blade worked quick but gentle, never grazing her skin. She didn't flinch, though the ropes had carved welts into her wrists. Her breath came shallow. Each sound, the soft snick of the knife, the rustle of leaves, seemed louder than it should have been. When the last knot fell, she stayed still, hands in her lap, fingers tingling with blood flow returning. "You sure about this?" she whispered. "No," he replied, voice low, "but I'm done doing what I'm told." Nandan helped at her feet. She stumbled once. He caught her with one arm, steady as a tree. Then he motioned, and they crept from the camp, step by step, the fire at their backs, the canyon ahead like the mouth of some old god waiting to close its jaws. They moved through the darkness in silence. His horse was tied near a stream bed. She mounted without help, despite the pain in her limbs. He took the lead, walking beside her, his own footsteps light against stone. Moonlight cut through the cliffs in slices. Somewhere behind them, a dog barked once and went quiet. At dawn they reached higher ground. From there, the desert stretched pale and endless. Saguaro stood like sentries. Far to the west, Smoke curled lazily into the sky. Campfire smoke, maybe, or the mark of another town being burned. Letty didn't ask. She slid off the horse and sat against a rock. Nana tossed her a piece of hardtack and dried meat. She chewed slowly, watching him. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "I know. They'll come after us. I know that, too." Letty studied his face. It was carved like the land, sharp lines, wind-burnt, unreadable. But she saw the storm behind his stillness. Saw in his eyes when he looked toward the trail they'd left behind. "You ever done this before?" she asked. "Run?" "Yes. I mean save someone." He shook his head. "No." She didn't ask why. She could tell the reason lived somewhere deep inside him, where even words didn't go. Below them, in the canyon's shadow, hoofbeats echoed. Dust rose in thin streaks. "They're close," he said. She stood, dusted off her skirt. "So what now?" "Now we move again." They took to a narrow goat path that wound through dry chaparral. The brush clawed at their legs. Lizards scattered. The sun climbed higher, and by midday it felt like the earth was trying to bake them both alive. Letty didn't complain. She'd stopped expecting comfort. Survival was a quieter thing. Dry lips, aching legs, the heartbeat of someone walking beside you when they could have ridden away. By late afternoon, they reached a canyon split with a dry creek. Nantan paused, crouched to examine the ground. Hoof prints. Deep. Not theirs. "They're ahead," he murmured. "Or trying to circle." Letty crouched beside him, arms folded tight. "So we're hunted both ways?" "Yes." "Then you made a mistake." He looked at her, and for the first time there was a flicker of something sharp. Not anger. Hurt, maybe. Or fear. "Maybe," he said. "But I'd rather die choosing wrong than live doing nothing." They moved north, scrambling over shale and brush, the horse following behind, spooked by every gust of wind. By dusk they found a hollow beneath an overhang, barely enough shelter for two bodies. Nantan started a fire with dry twigs and a single flint strike. Letty huddled close, more from exhaustion than warmth. "Your people, will they kill you for this?" she asked. He didn't answer. She pressed anyway. "Because of me?" "It's not because of you," he said finally. "It's because I stepped outside the circle. And no one likes that." "Why'd you do it then?" He looked into the fire. "Because when I saw them strike you, I remember my sister. There it was." Letty waited. He didn't say her name. Didn't need to. She was taken during a raid. Soldiers. White men. His voice was even, but tight, like a string pulled near breaking. "My father rode after them. Came back with nothing but her moccasin. The rest was gone." Letty's voice cracked when she spoke. "I'm sorry. I didn't save you for her," he said. "But I couldn't do nothing again." The fire snapped. Letty sat close, but not touching. "I don't hate your people," she whispered. "But I was raised to—" "I don't hate yours either," Nantan said. "But I remember what they did." They shared a silence not made of blame, just the weary ache of too much history. He handed her a blanket from his saddlebag. She didn't say thank you. He didn't need her to. That night, she sang softly under her breath. A lullaby, off-key, something from childhood, from the time before her mother died. Nantan didn't speak, but he listened, eyes open to the stars, every note wrapping around the wound he didn't show. In the dark, a branch snapped. Nantan rose instantly, crouched, knife drawn. Voices, low, but near. Apache, Taza among them. Letty froze. "They found us," Nantan said. She started to rise. "No, stay low. When I say run, you run. Don't stop." "Nantan." "Go east. There's a dry riverbed. Follow it until the trees change." "What about you?" But he was already moving, melting into the dark, a shadow among shadows. She didn't want to leave him, but she ran. Behind her, the land erupted. Shouts, the clash of metal, a cry of pain swallowed by wind. She didn't look back. The dry riverbed curved through a thicket of mesquite and ironwood, its pale sand crunching beneath Letty's boots. She ran until her legs betrayed her, until her breath came in gulps, until fear turned to numbness. Dawn bled over the horizon, painting the sky in quiet colors too soft for the kind of night she'd just survived. Blood had been spilled behind her. She didn't know whose. Her heart told her not to turn back, but something deeper whispered that she already carried the weight of it forward. She found a hollow beneath a cottonwood and collapsed there, clutching the blanket Nanton had given her. She curled into herself, pressing her hands to her mouth to keep from sobbing. The silence of the morning was cruel in its beauty. She waited for hoofbeats, for a gunshot, for anything, but none came. When she opened her eyes, a figure was standing above her. She scrambled back, fists raised, half ready to die. Samuel Creed didn't speak. His face was cut from stone, beard thick with dust, rifle slung low but ready. He stared at her like he wasn't sure she was real. "Pa!" she breathed. He dropped to his knees and caught her in his arms before she could fall. His grip was strong and desperate, but his body shook. "I got you," he whispered, again and again. "I got you." She buried her face in his shoulder, but even as she held him, she turned her head, eyes searching the horizon. "Where's he?" she asked. Samuel stiffened. "Who?" "The man who saved me." Samuel pulled back to look at her. "You talking about one of them Apache?" She nodded. "His name's Nantan." A shadow moved in his gaze, something wary and old. "He took you?" he asked. "No. He freed me. He fought his own." Samuel looked past her, scanning the tree lean. Luis emerged then, leading the horses, hat pulled low. His shirt was torn and his side bled through a bandage. But he nodded at Letty. "We saw the smoke," Luis said, "and one of them bodies wasn't cold." "Was it him?" Letty asked. Luis hesitated, didn't recognize the face. Samuel rose. "We need to move. If she's right, that warrior's marked now. His own want him dead. The whites won't care he helped." "But we can help him," Letty said. Samuel didn't answer. They rode north in silence. The land shifted from red stone to flatter, greener scrub. Buzzards circled in the distance. Letty rode stiff, eyes scanning every ridge, ears straining for a sign of Nantan. But the trail was cold. It wasn't until dusk that they found him. He was slumped against a boulder near a stream, blood dried along his side, a jagged cut beneath his ribs. His horse was gone. A knife lay limp in his hand. Letty dropped from her saddle and ran to him. "Nantan!" His eyes opened slowly. They focused on her like it took effort. "You made it," he rasped. She nodded, already tearing strips from her dress to press against the wound. Samuel stepped forward, rifle half raised. Letty turned. "Don't." "He's Apache, Letty. He's the reason I'm not buried in some shallow hole. That makes him more than just Apache." Luis knelt beside her, examined the wound. "It's bad. Fever might take him before the bleeding does." "We're not leaving him," Letty said. Samuel looked down at Nantan, then back at his daughter. "He kills one of his own, and you want to save him?" "He didn't kill a man. He killed a future that shouldn't have happened." Samuel didn't understand it, not fully, but he saw the way his daughter leaned over the warrior, the way her voice softened when she spoke to him, the way her hands shook as she held the cloth against the bleeding. It was more than pity. It was something born in the fire. Luis built a small fire under the canopy of a tree. They boiled water, cleaned the wound. Nantan barely spoke, drifting in and out of consciousness. Each time he opened his eyes, Letty was there. That night, Samuel stood guard while the others slept. He sat with the rifle across his knees, watching the desert breathe. His daughter had grown without him noticing, grown into someone fierce and loyal, someone who saw the lines between right and wrong and chose to walk the middle, like her mother once had. When morning came, Nantan was still alive. They rode slow, Nantan tied to the back of Samuel's horse, too weak to speak. Letty stayed close. They stopped often, watered the horses, hid from riders they saw on the far ridges. Word of the raid had surely spread. At a narrow pass between two hills, they were ambushed. Bullets cracked. Samuel dropped behind a rock, shouting for Letty to stay down. Luis returned fire. 3 riders emerged, Apache, painted for war. They'd come for Nantan. Letty screamed his name, crawling to his side. He tried to rise, but couldn't. Blood soaked through the bandage again. One of the warriors, Taz's younger brother, shouted in their tongue, accused Nantan of betrayal, said his death would restore honor. Samuel stepped into the open, rifle aimed. "You'll go through me first," he said. The warrior laughed. "Then we go through you." Luis shot him clean through the chest. Another rider charged, swinging a tomahawk. Samuel fired. The third turned and vanished into the brush. When the dust cleared, Nantan was still alive. Samuel walked to Letty, rifle lowered. She cradled Nantan's head in her lap. "He needs a healer," she said. "He'll get one," Samuel replied. She looked up, surprised. "You do that?" she asked. Samuel hesitated. "You said he saved you. That makes him family now, don't it?" Letty smiled through her tears. "Yeah, it does." 2 weeks later, a wagon rolled to the edge of a mining town, carrying a wounded man between 2 quiet riders. No one paid them much mind. Dust was always coming and going out there. Lives, too. Inside the wagon, Nannan opened his eyes. Letty sat beside him, hair braided back, sunburned and stubborn as ever. He reached for her hand. She took it. They said nothing. There was no need.